carry on and plan the sequel, because let's face it, baby, these days, you gotta have a sequel.
And welcome back to Micro Queers. It's our queer horror short roundup with feature films sometimes in the mix. Oh my god. And I'm Joe.
And I'm Trace. And this is our latest queer horror indie recommendation.
Indeed, yeah. Trace, this could be quite possibly the most Canadian queer horror film we have ever talked about.
I was going to say, this seems like it's really right up your alley. But everyone, we are discussing Jacqueline Castel's My Animal, a lesbian werewolf romance drama.
With hockey.
This is something that... Did you see this at Sundance?
I did, yeah.
Okay, so did I. I confess, I'm glad we have a chance to rewatch this, because I definitely watched this at the tail end of my, 30 Sundance movie marathon.
Whoa.
And I did not give this movie my full attention, so I definitely needed the rewatch.
Yeah, and I did not see as many Sundance films as you did, but I saw this probably somewhere in the middle. I took note of it because I figured we might have an opportunity to talk about it, but, as we were want to find during Sundance, some of the films were of varying quality, but also a lot of them didn't have distribution, so we weren't sure when this film was going to come out. So yeah, I was happy to have an opportunity to revisit it and, like you said, just kind of give it our full attention.
Yes, and this is very explicitly queer. And of course, we have Bodies, Bodies, Bodies is Amandla Stenberg in the film as well as a co-lead, although she is not the most interesting part of this movie, because I gotta say, Miss Bobbi Salvör Menuez is really a find for me in this film.
Yeah, I saw that her credits are listed as she's appeared in Euphoria, but when I thought back to who she could be, I couldn't place her on that show.
Yeah, it was a one-episode thing, so it wasn't a lot. She was in a TV show called I Love Dick on Amazon that starred Catherine Hahn and Kevin Bacon.
I know of it, but I never watched it.
Yeah, she was a recurring character in that show, but I also did not watch it. But nevertheless, I mean, this is her movie front and center. So I guess before we get too deep into it, Joe, would you recommend this film?
So I would, but I'm going to do a little asterisk caveat on that, which is to say, I think the film is quite a bit too long for how slight the story it is telling, but I think the performances are really strong, and particularly, as I said, if you do like your Canadian horror, this one feels quintessentially small Ontario town.
Yeah, also, I mean, it's Stephen McHattie. I feel like he shows up and it's like, oh yeah, Canadian movie.
I mean, not exclusively, but yeah, if he does show up, your likelihood of encountering a Canadian film is higher.
Yes, I am actually in complete 100% agreement with you. This is a slight recommend for me. The performances are what sell it and would make me recommend it. This is a movie that is it's about an hour and 45 minutes long, and it is very slow, which is not necessarily a bad thing. However, I don't necessarily think the payoff, the big emotional and action climax that concludes the film, is necessarily worth the wait.
Yeah, it's a struggle, right? Because really, at the heart of it, this is the story of Heather Salvör Menuez, and she is growing up in, I don't want to say a fully repressive house, but clearly her parents are keeping secrets, and they are hesitant to let her out after certain times. They're very restrictive about who she gets to see and that kind of stuff. So it's giving you shades of, Carrie and other things where it could be religious, but it's also just, conservative parents.
Yeah.
And we come to learn over the course of the narrative that she is basically a burgeoning werewolf. Her father is also a werewolf. Her mother harbors a ton of resentment, I think to her dad, but more so Heather, because Heather was supposed to be her little girl. And of course, Heather is also a big old lesbian. And so in some ways, this is very much a YA coming of age film where Heather has to negotiate her sexuality. She ends up getting discovered. Her family is not entirely supportive. She lives in a small conservative Ontario town. She just wants to be a goalie on a men's team because she is hyper competitive. And then she meets Johnny. And all of a sudden, her life gets messed up.
I'm going to tell you, Joe, it took me way too long to realize this was a period piece.
Yes.
Well, because we have in the very first scene, we have Heather like watching an old school TV, but I was like, that's fine. The family's retro. I don't know.
No. That TV could kill a person if it fell on them.
Oh, 100%. But of course, it is kind of important to understand why everyone is so anti-queer in this movie, because oh my god, everyone is anti-queer in this movie.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate the fact that she has these twin younger brothers, Cooper and Hardy, played by the Halpenny twins, Charles and Harrison. And these kids are the biggest fucking dicks ever. And I kind of love that they are also the golden children, even though Heather is clearly much better at sports. Like, she's daddy's girl, and I think that, again, lends itself to a certain amount of queerness where she wants to impress her father by going into a predominantly male-oriented sport, and then she excels. But I think, I don't know, I'm curious about how you read this. Do you ever feel like she's struggling with her sexuality, or is it like, oh, I just don't know how to come out?
I think it's the latter, because the Johnny character is absolutely the one who's struggling with her sexuality, because her home life, at least in terms of the queerness, seems much more fraught and much more religious, even though, I gotta say, Johnny's dad, I thought he was gay.
Oh, he fully is, because her father, Marcel, with whom she apparently figure skates with, like, it's unclear if he's just her coach or if he's also her partner, but we do see them skate a couple of times together. But he's played by a Canadian legend, Scott Thompson, and you probably wouldn't recognize him, Trace, but he's one of the founding members of the Kids in the Hall, but he's, like, super, super gay.
Oh, see, and that's kind of the thing is, like, once, I mean, I'm jumping ahead here, but like once Johnny kind of breaks things off with Heather, Johnny's not really a prominent figure in this movie anymore. No. And for how long this movie is, I mean, I get it, it's not the Johnny show where Heather is our protagonist, but I kind of wanted to know a little bit more about Johnny's life.
Yeah, so I feel in total agreement with you. I think in part because Amandla Stenberg is so, like, they're just such a great actor, and we've really seen them come to fruition is the wrong word, but we've seen them come into themselves in a variety of really fun, different kind of roles over the last few years. And the chemistry between Heather and Johnny is really good, to the point that when Johnny clearly starts to retreat back into the closet, you know, she's got a shitty boyfriend who plays, I don't understand this, plays baseball in the winter? Question mark?
I don't know.
I don't know.
You could have told me that was a normal thing, and I would be like, yeah, sure. Sports.
But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of factors going on in Johnny's story that I think maybe makes it, I would argue, a little more conventional, but maybe also a bit more compelling. Heather's journey is slightly different because a lot of her struggle seems to be coming from, like, it's an interior struggle. Yeah,
I mean, again, they're both dealing with their own things. I guess maybe it's a thing where it's like, I just don't like the fact that we don't get to kind of see them, because they don't really, like, oh my god, they don't make amends by the end of this film. I mean, no. I guess, like, and that's where I'm kind of like, when the movie ended, I was like, oh shit, like, that's the end. I was like, oh, well, so what is the story we're talking about here? Because then the film ending where it does kind of make the Johnny character feel more of like
superfluous? Not
superfluous, because I do think it plays a part in giving Heather someone to relate to that's not just her father, right?
Right.
And to be clear, it's two very different things. She relates to her father more than her mother because they are both wolves. She relates to Johnny more than anyone else in the film because it's the first, I'm assuming, the only other queer person she's met in her life.
Yeah, no, it's true, right? I mean, at the end of the day, as you said, this is the Heather show. So I think in some ways, all of the other characters are about aiding Heather in her personal journey. So as a result, Johnny could never be a central figure because even though we want the two of them to get together, or we want some kind of resolution, right? Like, I wanted Heather to confront Johnny when we get to the bar scene at the end of the film, because I wanted the catharsis of Heather getting to say, fuck you, you don't deserve me, or, hey, Johnny, I'm actually better, and, you know, we get this sweeping lesbian romance, and we don't get any of that, in part, I think, because of the period setting, but also because it's not really that kind of film. We just want it to be because we feel for Heather.
Exactly. But then that's why, though, with Menuez, like, I mean, she has to carry this film. I think she's in pretty much every scene of this movie.
Yeah.
And I think she does a really good job. I also do want to say, is this Castel's feature debut?
I believe it is, yes.
Yes. Oh, she comes to the world of music videos, and that makes a lot of sense. I actually think she has a very good visual, like an eye for visuals. I could feel the cold in this movie, and I mean, look, I'm sure some people are going to be like, oh, it's just so much red light. Can we just stop with that kind of like overbearing red lighting already? But you know what? I think it looks really good.
Yeah, I didn't mind it at all. I mean, we praised the performance because this is very much a character film. Like, it's all about Heather, as we said.
Yeah.
But you're right. For me, the visuals of this, like, particularly the sexy dreams where we shift from red to blue. And even, you know, there's the weird moment where Heather imagines Johnny holding up an egg, and then she covers her tits with it. And then we're like kind of doing a snowballing action with the egg. It's all deeply erotic, but it is shot like somewhere between a music video and a perfume commercial. And I love the stylishness of it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And like, this isn't a style over substance film. I think there's equal amount of style and substance. But yeah, this is very much come for the lead performance and come for the style. Which
I think a lot of people would be more forgiving of the film if it could have shaved about 15 minutes off. Because as you said, the narrative it's not particularly revolutionary, right? Like, this is a relatively straightforward, conservative coming out story. And it almost makes me wonder if we would be more appreciative of it, not just if it was shorter, or if it had more of that kind of payoff in the end. Like, I'm not unhappy with the climax of the film, but it is hard not to feel like the story is either just getting going, or it's a bit of a, okay, so we're not going to go further.
Would you put this in the good for her category of films?
In a way, because Heather definitely gets her revenge against Johnny's shitty boyfriend. I had actually hoped that she was going to get revenge on all of those guys. Like, when a group of them come out, I wanted her to take them all out and just kind of rid the town of these a-holes. So it was still satisfying to see her take him out.
Even though we kind of cut away.
Well, we cut away because I don't think we have the budget to show an actual wolf attack, or, you know, maybe a budget for prosthetics or CGI gore or something like that.
And that's the other thing, everyone. So, I mean, I don't even want to say she is a werewolf, but like, she just becomes a wolf. Like, this isn't like a humanoid wolf creature. And I haven't watched the trailer for this, but the poster is very much pushing the wolfiness of this film. And I do feel like that's eventually going to hurt it for anyone walking into this movie expecting a werewolf movie.
Well, it is interesting, right? Because so much of the film dances around it. Like, the revelation that she is turning into a wolf is almost something that the film keeps close to its vest until the last act. You know, there's a lot of sequences where she goes out near midnight and her watch starts to beep, and then she's got to run home through the woods. I'm really fond of the moment in the film where they all go to the casino and they trip acid, and then she basically has a freak out because she's not going to get home on time. It's a really good sequence, but so much of the film seems to be playing with that, you know, what happens if she doesn't get home on time? And as an audience member who has seen more than one werewolf film, we know what the answer is.
Yeah, I will say that I was kind of pleased. Like, we did have a lot of parallelism between, like, she's a werewolf, but she's also a lesbian. And so, like, we're kind of doing that as the parallels there. It doesn't hammer it home too hard, but I liked it. I mean, again, like, I think it works for all the themes of the film and what it's trying to do.
For sure. I mean, to me, this is a good companion piece to something like Ginger Snaps, which shot in the same part of Canada, has the same kind of small town vibe, winter-ish setting. That one is obviously a little bit more set in fall, but it has this kind of, I don't know, down-hominess to it. Like, this film feels a little rough and ready around the edges, and I think that's part of its charm, then mixed with the stylishness of the red and the nightmare sequences. Like, to me, it's a complimentary film in that regard. It's just that the storytelling isn't particularly adventurous, and I do think a lot of folks are going to go into this and say, oh, okay, yeah, like, it's fine, but I thought there would be more.
Yeah, and that's kind of how I felt about it as well. So again, it's a slight recommend. But I would probably, like you, offer some caveats before I would just tell someone to go seek this movie out.
Yeah, I think this is going to resonate really strongly for certain people. I could even see this if younger folks can get behind the runtime and the fact that the storytelling is relatively straightforward. I think this could be a really important film for like young queer women.
Sure. Yeah, I could totally see that.
Because also masturbating to glow is a deeply relatable piece.
Oh yeah, I will say too, I really like this the sex scene too. Like it's a very like, it's not, I wouldn't call this movie an erotic movie, but when it is sexy, it is sexy.
Yeah, which is surprising because in some ways you think, oh, well, we're not going to get the gore, like we're not really doing the animal stuff, so we're probably not going to go too sexy because these are quote unquote teens. They're not, but they're playing teens. And this sex scene is hot. It's good. Like, lesbian sex scenes in queer horror have gotten really good lately.
I was going to say, right?
Gays still got some ground to make up, but the lesbians are having a good go of it.
It's just because people are so afraid of butt stuff.
Well, there is that, yeah. We need a few more swallows. We need a few more hypochondriacs.
Yeah, exactly. So everyone, let us know what you thought. This, of course, is available on VOD right now. So if you want to go give some money to some indie queer horror, do that.
There you go. You got your marching orders.
Yeah, but until next time, we can cross out my animal.
Indeed. And cross out microqueers.
Atlas Avenue, a long stretch of road that encompasses everything the city of Kennett Heights has to offer. Neon lights, traffic, crime, the hustle and bustle of everyday life, and the craziest of characters. My office was above it all. My name is James Locke, and I'm a PI.
Hello, Mr. J. How the hell you doing today?
Good, Edith. Nearly every year I have a new case. New people to meet, new clues to discover, and new problems to solve. But I do it the old-fashioned way. No technology. Nothing post-1950. Hell, I don't even listen to podcasts, but you should. Atlas Avenue Beat is a spoof of the film noir genre with goofy characters, tons of wordplay, and non-stop raunchy humor. There's also 3 whole seasons out right now with more on the way. Just search for Atlas Avenue Beat wherever you listen to podcasts or visit us online at bloody.fm.